All righty. So today we're going to get started talking about the project for this course. What I'm giving you is just a sample handout of what it is that we're going to be doing. So for part one, and this is not the actual assignment, I will email you individually your assignments. We're going to do a recipe cost card. So what you're going to want to do is make up a restaurant name, make sure you put it on your documents and put your name on the documents. You'll turn in your work by sending an email back to me, and then I'll grade it, bless you, and send it back to you. So I think we've gone over the recipe cost card enough times. I think I got answers in here. Okay, so it's going to cost out each recipe item. We'll give you the quantity and the unit, and then how it's purchased and what the cost per unit is. You're going to see some things that might look a little bit different from what we have done. Okay, so there's a couple of items that come in a case that we do by count. So our conversion factor when we do that, we've got redfish fillets. They come in a 50 count case. So when we convert it, we're just going to find out how much each fillet costs. So we'll divide by 50. Anybody see any other things on there that you would have a question about? Because you'll still get the total here. Then we'll do the same thing that we did. We'll figure out how much an individual portion costs. We'll take it total recipe cost and divide it by whatever the yield is on your recipe, and then calculate the food cost percent. And when I email this to you, it'll have all the directions in it about what you're going to have to do. And of course, you can always ask me if you've got questions on it. So at this point, is there any issue you see with the recipe cost card? Second one. This file does not have an app. Oh, really? Okay, I apologize for this, because in order to get it printed out, I needed to change it into a photograph, but it's not showing up real well. So this is a menu engineering worksheet. The deal here is that we have 4 courses. You have to do each tab for the restaurant. Okay, so this is the second page in the handout. It's the menu engineering worksheet. We've got, what's I give it now? The 4 courses are, the starters, the soups and salads, the main course, and then the dessert. So you get to those tabs just by walking or clicking on each one of them. So you need to do a separate menu engineering worksheet for each course. We'll figure out what the stars and the puzzles and file horses are. Not going to be important because eventually we're going to use information from this to do our income statement. So if we take a look at this, column H is our menu revenue. So when we get box J, that's going to be our sales for the first course. And when you add up the sales for all 4 courses, then that will be the total sales that goes on your income statement. And then for your food cost, it's going to be column G, which is total in box I. And you'll add up all 4 courses of those and get your food cost that will go on your income statement. But to turn in this part of it, you just have to do the menu engineering worksheet for the 4 courses. I'll grade it, get it back to you, make sure that you're going to be using the correct numbers when you compare the income statement. See if I can find a I'm sorry, I can't get another menu engineering worksheet up. Moodle is working really slow. But I'll get another German Excel file on Moodle if you have access to, and you're going to have time to get this done. Okay, so then the next step is going to be it's an income statement. And for the income statement, these 2 areas highlighted in blue, the food sales and the food costs, that's what you're going to get from the totals of boxes J and I on your menu engineering worksheet. So you'll go through all 4 courses, add up those totals, and then put them into here. Once you do that, it looks like I have some formulas in here. Let's say that we have food sales of 150, and then our food cost would be so then the formulas that are in here are going to give you the total of your prime costs, the total of your sales. You've got your overhead, which is going to be given to you. So you'll have to calculate the profit. In this case, it would be 200,000 minus the 101, and then minus the 16,100. If you can't remember the formulas, sheet 2 has formulas for figuring out answers to what we're asking about here. It's not, I'm sorry, I didn't print it for you, but it'll be with the instructions to get with this when this form is emailed to you. You also have to calculate Talked about the profit in dollars, also food cost percent, beverage cost percent, labor cost percent, and then profit percent. So let me go ahead and put the numbers in here. Okay, so this shows a profit of $82,000, which is pretty high. And to calculate the percent, you're just going to take the profit and divide it by total sales. And our answer is 41.5%. For feed, beverage, and labor, stuff like we have been doing, the feed cost divided by the feed sales. And the next one is beverage cost divided by beverage sales. And then labor cost divided by total sales. Oops. Okay, so that's what you, when you do this, like you already have your graded menu engineering worksheet back. And I typically what I do is once you turn in the menu engineering worksheet, I collect it and then send it back with your income statement where you can go ahead and do the income statement. So any questions on this income statement? The next thing that we have not gone over is the recipe conversions. I've got a sheet of some samples here. So if we take a look at the first example, just one ingredient in a recipe. I'm not showing you the whole recipe. We have a recipe that calls for 4 gallons of water. And at the end of the day, whatever it is that we're making yields a total of 8 gallons. So it could be chicken soup, something on that order that needs 4 gallons of water. And that's what our standard recipe is. But let's say we need more than 8 gallons of water. Not 8 gallons of water, 8 gallons of the soup, and 20 gallons instead. We're going to convert that recipe, taking the new yield of 20 gallons and dividing it by the original yield of 8 gallons. And that's going to give us the conversion factor. That comes 8 goes into 22.5 times. So we'll multiply 2.5 times the 4. And then that means we would need 10 gallons of water for this new recipe. So that's one of the simplest ones that I can come up with that shows you how we're going to do recipe conversion. Okay, any questions on that one? I have several here so that we can maybe get a better idea of what else is going on. So let me highlight the second one. Okay, so this recipe calls for chicken stock. Calls for 4 cups of chicken stock. And our yield for the whole recipe is going to be 1 gallon. All right, so if we want to make 20 gallons is our new yield, take the new yield divided by the old yield, that conversion factor is 20. So then we'll take the individual ingredients of 4 cups of chicken stock, multiply by 20, and now we need 80 cups of chicken stock. Everybody follow that? Okay, and then what I have below that is like a simplification, because you don't want somebody going in your kitchen and taking a measuring cup and counting 80 cups of stock. So there are ways to convert that. If you know that there are 4 cups in a quart, you divide that 80 cups by 4, that would be the same as 20 quarts. But since we also have gallon containers, we can also divide it by 4 quarts per gallon, and we get 5 gallons of stock, which would be a lot easier to get and measure and actually use. So in addition to calculating the new quantity, put it into an expression that's going to mean something and be easy for people to use. So then, so those first 2 units, those were liquid measurements, which involves teaspoons, tablespoons, fluid ounces, cups, pints, quarts, gallons. This next thing is chicken breast, and it's going to be something by the cup. Each plate is going to have 1 chicken breast on it. So it makes it really easy. If we have a yield of 4 plates when we have 4 chicken breasts, how many chicken breasts do we need to yield 100 plates? But since it's 1 per plate, we know the answer is going to be 100 plates. But if we follow the math again, then we yield 100 divided by 4 is 25. We're multiplying it again by 4 chicken breasts. So that means we're going to make 100 each of the chicken breasts in order to be able to send out 100 plates. Okay. Now what I did next was take some ingredients that are a little bit different. And these are actually on the handout that you have for the redfish, or whatever that recipe is, baked redfish. Okay. So first one is red wine vinegar. And the recipe calls for 1.5 cups, and it yields 18 portions. Okay, now again, we're going to try and figure out how much do we need if we want to make 100 portions. So we, same way, we'll calculate the conversion factor, dividing 100 plates by 18 portions, get a factor of 5.556. So when I multiply that by the 1.5 cups, it comes out that we will need 8.333 cups of red wine vinegar in this new recipe. But again, we can make that a little bit easier. We can divide it by 4, and we're going to get 2 quarts, and then that takes care of the 8 cups, and then the 0.333 cups. How many ounces are in a cup? 8. There are 8 ounces in a cup. So we'll take that decimal and multiply it by 8, and that gives us 2.7 ounces. So depending on the ingredients, what you're making, you might eventually round that down to 2 ounces or round it up to 3 ounces, depending on how much that could possibly affect the final outcome of this. Okay, so again, we went from this 8.33 cups and then combined, that adds up to 2 quarts and 2.7 fluid ounces. The next one is by weight. So the recipe calls for yellow onions, 13 ounces. Again, that recipe card that you have yields 18 portions of the baked redfish. We want to make it 100 plates. We're going to have the same conversion factor because it's going from 18 portions to 100 portions. So that stays the same, the 5.556. But this time we'll multiply it by 13. And that's going to give us 72.22 ounces. And then when we make that simplified, how many ounces in a pound? 16, all right. So we divide the 72 by 16, that's going to give us 4 pounds. And then the difference is going to be 8.2 ounces. So typically the recipes are, you want to be consistent with them. If this is 13 ounces of onions that have already been peeled and cleaned, then that's what you want to start with. And if that's what you start with, then that's what you end up with here. 4 pounds, 8 ounces of onions that have already been peeled and cleaned. So you weigh them after they're peeled and cleaned instead of before. Does that make sense? Okay. This is kind of just in there as part of the project so that y'all get some experience doing this. The last part of the project, which I don't have yet, is going to be the last part of the project is going to be to write an analysis of your restaurant. And the two things that you have to use as tools for that are going to be your menu engineering worksheet and your income statement. So you'll go through your menu engineering worksheet, identify what your dogs and followers are. And if this one is in Biloxi, Mississippi, each of you is going to have a different location, different numbers that you're going to be working with. But you're going to have the same menu items. Now, the menu items might make sense in Biloxi, but they might not make sense in Cleveland or Los Angeles or wherever else you might get. And I'll give you an example of one that I wrote. Talking about the things that you have to like imagine, okay, why is it so terrible here and what am I going to do about it? Is it something that we have on the menu to get people to come in? Or is it a vegetarian item that I'm trying to use and it really just isn't working? People don't like it, vegetarians don't like it. Is it something that's really foreign to this area? So if we were here in Thibodeau, let's see, the menu items we have on here are shrimp cocktail, sweetbreads, oysters Rockefeller, clams casino, and ceviche. And anybody ever had clams casino? Period. A couple of yeses. Okay, clams just real, they don't grow near here, and we don't eat them much in this area. So that could be the reason why we sell 44 of them in a month. So we might look for something else. Maybe this can happen sometimes when a chef relocates. Like I did from Pennsylvania and moved down to Biloxi. You do things the way that you did them where you used to work. Anybody from Mississippi? Okay. Do you find cornbread here is different than the cornbread in Mississippi? And that's true. What would you say about the sweetness in Mississippi cornbread? Really? Maybe it's just, what part of Mississippi you from? I don't know. When we were on the coast, it was like they didn't want sugar in their cornbread. Like very, very little. And we had to get like a local woman who worked in a hotel, and she's like, no, don't put butter in the cornbread. Put vegetable oil in the cornbread. It makes it a lot moister, and it makes sense. Anybody taken baking yet? Definitely. So butter, as good as it tastes, I think roughly 80% fat. Then there's milk solids and water in it. Okay. And when you have vegetable oil, you have 100% fat. So that fat helps that cornbread stay moist. It actually is drier when you use butter. That seemed to make a big difference once we started doing that, because the buffet would take our cornbread and then make a cornbread dressing out of it. So that was like up north. I mean, we don't make cornbread up north. Our cornbread up north was definitely sweeter and was made with butter, because that's how we traditionally made it. So this is the whole project. Out of the 5 pieces to it. The work I have to do is make sure I have individual recipe cost cards, menu engineering worksheets, and income statements for y'all. When we do the recipe conversion, I'm going to have you use part of your N number to figure out what your new yield is going to be. I'll go over that and show you that in class before that's due. Have any questions at this point? When is this due? I'm supposed to get it all done by the end of classes. So classes end later, like we still have a week before after Thanksgiving.
Do you send us this whole part of the project when you turn it into the second part?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you like the first page. Yes. Right, and there might be a time when I send like 2 things out, because the really important thing is the menu engineering worksheet. That you get that back to be your income statement. Okay, any other questions? All righty, we'll see you on Wednesday, and we'll start with beverage.